first, before we do that, we're very happy to have with us Garrett Gomez, who rode Beholder in wire-to-wire fashion to win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. Garrett, congratulations on your win. And as far as the fractions you laid down, it looked like you fought off, to some degree, Kauai Katie early, and then you really got your filly into a nice rhythm. Is that how it played out, and how confident were you that you had sufficient gas left in the tank?
Well, I mean, Richard did a tremendous job with her. I mean, just as far as teaching her how to relax and be a little bit more patient. And, you know, like today when I left the gate, I didn't really ask her to leave there too much because I know she's typically really quick. You know, I thought they'd have trouble even clearing me just because, you know, she is so fast away from the gate. And the idea was just to try to get her to settle as much as possible and not get her stirred up and wanting her to get it too aggressive. And you know, when we got right to the point of the turn, Kauai Katie come outside of her a little bit, and I just dropped my hands a little bit, and she quickened and got back a length in front of her. And you know, I kept trying to discourage the other filly by moving out a little bit and just getting my filly so she didn't feel like she was getting so much pressure from her. And when we headed up the backside, I put her on a long hold, and you know, she hit a nice a rhythmic stride to herself. And, you know, she just traveled beautiful for me. I mean, not pulling, you know, just the way I could have dreamed it up. You know, when I got to the turn, she stayed up in the bridle for me and was still traveling wonderful. And actually about the 5/16 pole, almost a quarter pole, I kind of moved at her a little bit to see if I could get her to start sneaking away because I felt like I could get away from them. And when I did, she started to go, and then all of a sudden, as I started to turn for home, she kind of hit the idle button on me, and it popped in my head, uh-oh. You know what I mean? I really was a little concerned because the more that I asked her, the shorter her stride got. And I started to get a little bit worried about what she was doing. And all of a sudden, the horses kind of caught up to her. And when the horses, the fillies from behind started catching her, she kind of started coming back up underneath me. And, you know, about the 16th pole, it was just like she had revived herself, and all of a sudden she just had this true grit about wanting to win, and she got right back up on her feet and did what she was supposed to do and finished up nice for me.
Is that phenomenon that you just described with her, you know, the more you asked, the less she gave, is that pretty rare?
Well, I mean, it's kind of typical with fillies sometimes. You know, they take a different kind of handling sometimes than say, a male horse. And, you know, she's kind of one of those typical fillies that's just kind of temperamental about things. And, you know, you have to do it her way. And, you know, when I turned for home, I just automatically told her, let's go. And when I started to tell her, let's go, she started getting a little attitude with me. And you know, I didn't have time to start trying different things to try to get her back up on her feet. And, you know, I gave her a couple of spanks left-handed, and like I said, by the time I got into her a couple times and told her, let's go, like I said, her stride kept shortening, but then all of a sudden the horses from behind started to catch up, and it really just kind of revived her, and she quit paying attention to me and went to paying attention to them. And when she went to paying attention to them, you know, her true grit of wanting to win the race again, you know, her competitiveness got back up into her bloodstream and really, you know, paid off.
Were you aware that specifically executive privilege was coming?
I mean, I could hear Trevor. Usually I can't hear Trevor, but, you know, being in front like it was, I all of a sudden I just kind of like focused on her, and I was getting into her left-handed, and I really just kind of buried my head and tried to pick her up and really communicate with her and just pray for her to really kind of stay up in the bridle and get me home. And just kind of squeezed every last ounce I could get out of her. And all of a sudden, the other filly just couldn't get to her. And, you know, like I said, but I felt her about the 16th pole, too. I felt her come back up underneath me. And when she did so, I was like this big sigh of relief, because then I knew that when I felt her come back up underneath me, I said, they can't get her now.
Any questions for Garrett? Yes, Tom?
Garrett, when you won that allowance race at Santa Anita in early October, you hit the front and took off. Is that some kind of inspiration in terms of strategy today, that you open up and you put a gap between yourself and executive privilege and make her come and catch you? Was that your thinking going into the gate?
Well, I mean, the best way that I kind of figured out was just try to get her relaxed as best as possible. And by doing so, like the other day when she went 3/4 of a mile, even though she went 44 flat, she was loose out in front and traveling really well, and it traveled well within herself. And I just tried to put her in a similar situation today. And my main concern was the 2 turns in the mile and the 16th. And that was my biggest concern. And I thought if I could get away with some fractions, that were like galloping to the pole, like in a morning breeze, a fast gallop to the morning pole, I could start acting like we're going 6 furlongs up the backside, and actually try to start stretching the field out and get them chasing me. And she actually didn't pull, which was the number one key to her winning the race, because she was just off the bridle, galloped along, and that got all the gratitude from my point goes to Richard Mandela, because he did a tremendous job getting her to settle for me, and getting her to understand what she's supposed to be doing out there, and not just go fast.
And last question, Garrett. Did you have any input into the decision on running Beholder in the Juvenile Fillies? And if not, were you surprised, pleased by the decision to run her there, which obviously proved to be the right decision?
Well, I mean, when I pulled up, that was the first thing I said out of my mouth. I'm glad you decided to run her here. I think she would have been very competitive no matter where you ran her. I think maybe behind the whole key was the other race. It wasn't a graded race yet, and she's grade 1 placed already, and now she's grade 1 a winner. And one race was 500,000, one race was 2 million. And it's young enough in her career where she ran a great 7/8 mile race, and she didn't really relax that day. And I talked to Richard, and I didn't want to be the one deciding where he. I didn't want to put too much emphasis on where she ran, because, like I said, she was questionable about the 2 turns, but also going 6 furlongs, I didn't feel like they were just going to let her gallop along on the lead, so she was going to get pressured there too. So it didn't really matter which way he went with her. I thought maybe if she run her long, she'd get loose like she did, and hopefully she'd hang on, and it worked out great for us.
Worked out great, and it resulted in Breeders' Cup win number 13 for you, Garrett. Congratulations, great ride.